welcome to LeAnn Riley's Real Estate Investing Made Simple Club. Hi, everybody. We do live interviews with experts and leaders in the real estate investing world. And I'm LeAnn Riley, broker and real estate coach, and I lead the Encore investment team of realtors here in the Twin Cities. We go up to St. Cloud, down to Rochester. And I built a multi-million-dollar portfolio in residential, multifamily, condo development, commercial, and vacation properties. And as a national coach and a trainer, I help people get started or to scale a portfolio like Russ did without confusion or fear with my proven profit formula coaching program. And I also want you to check out my YouTube channel. You'll find this recording over there. And it's called LeAnn Riley Real Estate. And be sure and subscribe when you're over there. So remember to stay on after our live stream here today, because we are networking. And if you didn't get all your questions answered, you can chat with us then, okay? So today's topic, I'm going to introduce Russ here. He's right here with me in the studio. And today's topic is how Russ grew to 32 units from 0 to 32 during COVID since 2020. So first, I'm going to introduce Russ, okay? And Russ Mosley, he ditched his 9-to-5 and jumped into real estate investing in 2020. And his 25 years as a bank trust department manager provided all the skills he needed to grow a portfolio, even during COVID. His holdings include single family, townhome, multifamily, and even a mobile home park. He manages his own portfolio. That means he self-manages the tenants and everything else. That means the kitchen sink too, guys. Anyway, he manages it himself and he does some fix and flips. So we'll talk about that. And he's a fast-moving real estate investor and he knows how to solve problems. And his family-owned company, Positive Share, you can see it on his shirt there. They operate with a heart and a dare to care philosophy. So hi, Russ, and I'm so glad you could join us today.
Hey, LeAnn, thank you for having me.
Okay, and I always share with you how I met my speakers. And guess what? Networking. Somebody I knew Russ, and he introduced us. Thanks, Robert. And then Russ became a coaching client, and we'll talk about that today. And networking, I just want you to know, it's a secret to prosperity in real estate, isn't it, Russ?
It sure is.
It's magic. Networking is what it's about. And relationships, and the way that our team gets things done, and the way Russ gets things done and solves problems is with the network we have built. And that's why you need to stay on after this call to be here for the networking, because you can meet each other. I know this is virtual, but it's still COVID times. And you can meet people virtually here if you stay on the call and find out what it is they're doing. And maybe it's someone you want to get together with. So I'm going to get to Russ here now. Russ, tell us what gets you so excited about investing in real estate?
I think what excites me most is that I get up every day now, and I used to be able to predict what was going to happen that next day in the corporate world. I can kind of plan it. But for this, I get up and I just look forward to what comes next. I look forward to interacting with my tenants. I look forward to interacting with the community. I build relationships with a lot of the city ordinance offices. And there's always something new and creative I have to address.
Yeah, never a dull day in real estate.
Never a dull day.
That's so true from the realtor perspective too. Never a dull day. Okay, so one more semantic here before we get started. I want to take a poll and figure out who's here listening, just so Russ and I can be sure and interact with you where you're at in real estate investing. So here's the questions. I put the poll up. All you do is answer these questions here. Is it up? Yeah, there we go. Somebody's answering. It's just asking you what type of real estate investing interests you. Are you just getting started, fix and flip, buy and hold, house hacking, student housing, BRRRR, short-term rentals?
A lot of activity there.
Yeah. Now people are voting real quick. I'm only going to leave it up another 5 seconds. And this helps us see who's on the call so we can be sure we're speaking to you. So I like to do this. So now I'm going to end the poll. And when I end it, you're going to be able to see who we have the most of, because you guys will see the right results. I'm going to share them with you here. Okay, so it looks like we have some buy and holders, which, you know, that's really where we're trying to go. And we have some starters, a couple of fix and flippers, BRRRR, and short-term rentals are really the categories that we're seeing here. So, and some people scaling a portfolio. Buy and hold's the winner, but barely. So that's good to know. We got a lot of different people here, but oops, stop sharing. Okay, there we go. Now you're back to Russ and I. So, okay, let's get going. So I'm curious, Russ, how did you make that leap from the 9-to-5 job over here to investing full-time? How did you do it?
Well, a lot of it was based on, I spent a lot of time sitting on the couch watching a lot of videos. I dug so deep into Bigger Pockets, into a bunch of other investors. I thought that I always needed to know a little bit more. I thought that it was important that if I wanted to do fix and flips, I had to learn everything about fix and flips for me to take the next step. If I wanted to do buy and holds, I had to understand how to deal with tenants, how to do all these different things, how to manage a portfolio. I felt that there were so many other avenues of the business that were so wide open that I wasn't ready. Right. And that unreadiness kept me sitting on the couch. Right. And what I really had to start to realize was that it wasn't that I wasn't ready. It was that I was creating my own roadblocks.
In your own.
In my own head. I was creating my own roadblocks as to why I couldn't take the next step forward. And then once I was able to get over that first hurdle of that roadblock, the ones that came after it got a little bit easier and a little bit easier and a little bit easier, to where now I function totally different. What's interesting is that I function over these past 2 years. I've reached the point now where I function as critical and as quick as I did in the corporate real in the 25 years. In 2 years, I was able to equate what I'm doing in this business to what I did in all those years as a corporate leader.
Wow. Well, and that's, I know we've talked about this. That's because your corporate skills, they fit over here really well.
Yeah.
You know, and you just had to adapt and put your real estate hat on, basically. Yeah. Instead of your banker hat.
And that was actually, and I wear that banker hat sometimes too. If I'm sitting down with banks, I wear the hat. But I just, and that was one of my biggest fears, was that I was constantly thinking that, you know, wow, I really want to be a real estate investor, but I have no idea where to start. I have no idea what to do. And all I kept seeing was, if you start doing this, Russ, you know, it's going to take a lot of money. Every time I talk with realtors, it was, you need to save up $50,000 to do this and $50,000 to do that. And I would get to 25 and then, or 26. And then I would say, oh, yep, something else would come and step in and take the money. And I realized I was giving the money away to it to avoid taking the step. Right.
And I know one of the things when you first met me and learned a little bit more about what it would take to get off the couch, you didn't need that much money.
Yes, I didn't need that much money. I had the money I needed to get started. And that was because the key language that you used with me was understand, Russ, you need, I think I remember you saying something to me about, Russ, you don't have a real estate start problems. I forgot how you worded it. You have a misunderstanding of leverage.
Ah,
So you're sort of asking me some questions about, well, how do you do this? What do you have for that? Who people do you think that you know? And then I started thinking about it, and I started realizing you do have options. You have a way of being able to utilize this. You can talk to banks. Like many other people, I was probably just as fearful about talking to banks as anything else. And now I find out banks need me as much as I need them.
they do. And you get a good relationship going with the bank, and they are there for you. Yeah, we're talking about commercial loans here, folks. Yeah. So what was that big turning point that got you off the couch?
I was having a conversation once with another student of ours, Robert, and I was trying to understand, how is it that he owns multiple properties? I've owned my own house multiple times, but I've never bought an investment property. And I couldn't understand, how is it that I make twice as much as he does, but he owns multiple properties that are cash flowing, cash for him. And once he started telling me his story, he said to me, Russ, I really think you should talk to this woman named LeAnn Riley. I think she can help you. He was telling me that you gave him a 30-minute session at a conference you had met him at. And he says, I really, really thought that she was great. And I think you and her personality would really click and that you would do well with her. But he did tell me she won't take on just anybody as a student, but I know she won't hesitate taking you on. Right. And I said, okay, I'm game. I'll try it. And I remember you and I having that first conversation, and then me saying to myself, okay, it's going to cost this amount of money for me to be able to get started here. And then walking away from that and saying to myself, oh my goodness, am I going to spend this money? And I spent like 2 or 3 days just like pondering back and forth the reasons why I shouldn't do it. And then finally it just came to me. It was like, look, you would spend all this money for you to travel around the world and go and do things with your family and everything. Why not invest in yourself? And once I said that, it made sense to me. And I would say it's been one of the best investments I've ever made. Every penny that I spent, I got back that probably within the first deal that I bought.
That's what I say to most people. You pretty much can, when you do real estate right, it goes faster and you can accelerate the velocity of your money. When you're learning, it takes kind of long and it stretches it out. Right. Yep. So we're going to ask Russ about, okay, what was the very first property you got after you quit?
The first property was a condo. It wasn't what I initially thought I wanted, because like many of you, I watch all of the videos on YouTube and I keep hearing about how people are making money in multifamily and how, everybody wants to hit that home run with cash flow. So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I can buy a multifamily, I can cash flow $1,000, $1,500 a month. That would be my first step to really show me that I'm an investor. Instead, you showed me that way of thinking fits a person that's in a certain situation in real estate, that's ready to move towards, that has a certain level of experience, that has an exposure to a larger amount of money for repairs and all the other things. And you taught me to look at things like condos and townhomes and look at it differently, because those are ones that you can manage easier and you can learn. So my first condo, I spent 3 months working in that condo, rehabbing, because I was still in that mindset of I needed to know everything. I analyzed putting nails in the walls and how I was going to do trim. And even though I knew you cut at a 45-degree angle, I watched probably 3 or 4 or 5 videos just to make sure I was doing it right? Because I wanted it to be perfect, right?
And that condo turned out pretty swank, and he still owns it today. It's in Edina.
Yep. And I wouldn't have thought that I could have afforded to buy a condo in Edina, but because of what I was learning from you, the opportunity afforded itself.
That's cool. So it all started with the condo, right? Yep. And then your next thing was a family property that you essentially flipped.
Yep. It was a property that my mom had lived in. She had passed, and then I had taken it over. I'd given it to my brothers to take over, and they had totally demolished it and I had to go in. But because of what I learned in that condo, it was easy for me to go in and do the rehab there. Now, I had been doing rehabs on my house and my friend's house for years, but that still didn't resonate in my head that I knew how to do those things and that it would be easier going forward.
And it didn't, now the townhouse didn't take that long. Half the time.
Actually, it took me almost 4 months in the condo. It took me probably 5 to 6 weeks to rehab an entire townhouse.
Yeah, a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and sell it. So there's 2 strategies he did right away before he grew to the next level. Okay, so let's see. The next level was you bought some multifamily.
Now that I thought was just crazy because I had gone from a condo to rehabbing the townhouse that my mom had to all of a sudden you sending me a lead one day that had these apartments that were down in the southern parts of Minnesota, and one was a 6 unit and one was a 5 unit. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm going to go to 12 doors in a matter of like not even half a year. Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
I'm scared.
how do you do this? Okay, how do you do this? Well, you know what? That's what LeAnn is there for. So we spent a lot of time on the phone talking through what needed to happen. And that experience helped me build up my confidence. I joke with my wife sometime when I tell her, I think LeAnn just created a monster because now at this point, there isn't a lot that I'm fearful of in real estate anymore because now I know it's all possible.
Well, and those units, you guys, the 6 and the 5 unit, he bought them at the same time, 11.
Yep, at the same time.
And they were cheap. So don't ever say you can't find a good deal.
Yeah, and they're cash flowing extremely well.
And they were on the market, folks.
Yep.
But this is why you need an investment property realtor. I spotted them one day and, I knew right away. And this is what I actually teach my students is how to tell right from the listing, does it make money or not? And it doesn't take long. Like I knew in once, I'm like, wow, look at these, I gotta quick find somebody to buy these because these are screaming deals, and they are.
Yeah, and I understand as a new investor, if I didn't have you, I would have probably panicked over the idea of now becoming an immediate landlord of 11 doors and having to figure out how to do everything because I was still learning about how to value add. I had watched a lot of videos, but I really didn't understand what value add really meant, right? Until you start executing it, you don't really start to see how doors open up for you. And then once I stepped into it, I could see all the value add. I had no fear of increasing rents. Because I was able to understand in order to increase the rent, I had to justify adding some value to the units. And this is how I do it. I don't have to totally remodel the whole unit. I just need to make it look better and present better and be a cleaner environment and really put tenants in there that are going to feed into the growth of the unit.
Do I have a picture of that one? I don't. I remember in the 6 unit, it was built in the 50s or 60s. It's not even that old.
Yep.
And, it had kind of a unique green siding, right?
The green siding, very
color.
It stood out.
But the inside of the building, I remember particularly the halls, they had wood paneling and hadn't been painted, or they looked dark and dreary. And, it's all those easy cosmetic fixes that suddenly the building, when he painted that all white, the whole building looked great.
It brightened up. And the previous owner had 7 satellite dish out in front of the building on the front of the entrance when you walked in. So it looked like ET was phoning home. And immediately it was like, that's got to go. I remember seeing it in the picture when you sent it over to me. And I was like, what the heck is this? What are they doing? I was like, why would he put that in the front of his building?
Yeah.
Then I found out that none of those dishes were even being used.
Yeah, they just got
Tenants
left,
just
right?
kept putting one up at another, and then I asked them all, and they said, "Nope, we don't use any of those."
It's amazing. So he went then from those two into, he sold the one townhouse and now he has 11 units. And that was landlord 101, wasn't it?
That was landlord 101, and I took that money from the townhouse and I put it into. I started. That's where you helped me form what's going to be my strategy. And my strategy became I do a flip to do a buy and hold. But in that deal, I did a flip to 2 buy and holds.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. 'Cause
Mhm.
actually, I'm a realtor. Remember, I found him an off-market deal in Jordan.
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about Jordan. That's a southern suburb. And it was the dead of winter, wasn't
Yep,
it?
it was the
Yeah,
dead of winter.
dead of winter.
Yeah.
And this had been a smoker house. And it was a nice rambler though, on the edge of town.
Yeah. Mhm. Nice community, very quiet in that part. I mean, Jordan's a quiet town anyway. I remember walking into it and just, I think Jordan is where I started to see the transition of how I was thinking. Because if I would have walked into Jordan, very similar to when you and I walked into that 4-unit apartment complex that was down along, was it 52 or 61? The first building that we looked at, and we walked into it, and I kept saying, I think you're playing a joke on me, because there's no way I would want to buy this, because the building was slanted and everything, and I thought you were just trying to teach me a lesson. Right? And if I would have walked into Jordan back then, I would have had a different type of thought, because when we walked into Jordan, it was totally smoke infested. The walls that were white were now yellow. All the popcorn was yellow in the ceilings. You smelled nothing but smoke in all the flooring. The basement had cobwebs everywhere,
yeah.
and it was totally unfinished and filthy down there. And I walked in, and all I smelled was money. And I just laughed at it, because I was like, most people would walk in here right now and be fearful. But if I look at it, in those 4 or 5 months, I had gone from, you count the 4 months in the condo, to probably about 3 to 4 months of owning the multifamily, along with my mom's house, and working on that. So I'd say probably within like a 9-month span, I had gone through enough in those 9 months that when I walked into Jordan, there was nothing in there that was going to scare me. I was just like, okay, I can take this on. Now I walk into, I'm looking for properties like Jordan.
Here's a picture of Jordan, folks. And on the left is the before, the kitchen after he gutted it. And look at that lovely color on the wall. And over here on the right is the kitchen and kind of the hallway. It's sort of a bad angle, but he gutted the kitchen and started all over, and it looked nice and fresh and clean. And he got rid of the smoke smell too in the whole house.
Yeah. And Jordan sold in less than probably 2 weeks.
Yeah,
but
really
2 weeks
easy.
on the market, and it was we had multiple offers, and it was sold.
Yeah, and I think the profit was
about somewhere between $70,000-$80,000.
Yeah.
Right then, I was sold. I can do this business.
Yeah, that's a good profit, isn't it? Okay, how do I get off my share? Here we go. All right, gotta get there it is. Okay, back to us. So I want to ask you then, is it true that the first one is the hardest?
Yes, but it's not the hardest in the work. It's the hardest mentally to work through all of the challenges.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because, like what I found is that it was more of me. It wasn't that I didn't know. It was more of me trying to prove to myself that I could do it than anything else.
And, part of my program is about, guess what? The mindset. Because after you figure out if you have leverage, the next thing is you have to have a wealthy mindset. Because if you can't, you will talk yourself out of real estate investing. And the fear will win. And that's where a coach or a mentor really comes in, because you need weekly support to stay, it's no different than losing weight or something. You got to go to the gym, right? And like for me, I can't trust myself at the gym. I have to hire trainers or be in a class, because then I'm going to show up, I'm going to push myself harder, and then I get results. Real estate investing is the same way. If you have some help, you can get results faster, like Russ, all the way to 32 units. Like that's quick during what people might say, what a strange market we've had. But there's deals out there.
Yeah, there are deals out there.
No matter what.
You got to do the work to find the deal. And the work requires repetition, but it also requires for you to be disciplined and going and looking and, constantly asking and letting people know what you do and that you're looking. I mean, I've had so many deals where people have come to me and said, Russ, I know someone who's looking to do this. And if I wouldn't have told them that I was doing this, in their mind, I'm Russ, the corporate leader. That's what I've always been, right? And now when I'm telling them that I'm an investor in real estate, they know me as being a person who executed in the corporate world, and they're not surprised to see me executing this way.
Yeah, totally. So did you need a ton of money to get started?
For that first initial property, the condo, I didn't need a lot of money. I mean, I had the money for the condo. I bought it at the right price. I had to put about 25% down, but it was less than what I initially always thought I needed for me to be able to do it. Right? Well,
if I remember right, you paid under 120 for that condo, and 25% down isn't so bad.
Yeah.
And then you funded the rehab, which was maybe 20,000.
Yep. And when I still remember that first conversation I had with Robert, and he was telling me, I was like, how do you do this? And when he told me a story about how he bought his first property and then he borrowed from friends and then he used credit cards to fund the first purchase, I'm like, hold it. The more I listen to you talking about leverage, I had access to hundreds of thousands of dollars in credit available to me that I had never spent, that I could actually start toward that business. I didn't have to use the whole thing, but when the rehab required 10,000 or 12,000, I knew where I was getting the money from. Right. I didn't have to think, oh shucks, I need to figure out how to get it from somewhere else. And I was able to see clearly exactly. But the one thing that you also taught me is how to understand the numbers. So even though I knew I was going to create that initial debt to pay for any supplies I needed, I also was able to see how the cash flow was going to pay for it. Yes. And get rid of it very quickly.
Right. You got to be able to figure out how to pay it back.
Yeah, right.
The main strategy that I believe is the best way to enter is if you buy cash flowing properties to start with, or maybe they don't cash flow, but you can quickly add the value so they are cash flowing. That's the way to start, because then the tenants are paying your mortgage payment and there's extra. Then you're successful, right there out of the gate. And, there's cash flowing properties out there or able to be turned into cash flow. Lots of properties are undermanaged. I know you.
I've come across that multiple times.
That 6 and 5 unit he bought were very undermanaged, and really a lot of his cash flow came from managing them properly. Along with fixing them up.
And more than doubled the cash flow on each one of them.
Yeah, more than double. And it was already really good. Right?
Yep.
And we're talking many thousands of dollars of cash flow on that 6 unit, right?
Yep.
We're not talking 1,000. We're talking.
Yeah, I mean, those rents grew tremendously. They grew just based on adding the value add. I mean, I took the 6 unit and I went in and I rehabbed 4 of the 6 units. The only reason I didn't do the other 2 is because there were tenants already in it. But as tenants moved out, I went in and rehabbed the unit. And in each unit, maybe I spent a little bit over $2,000.
Yeah, hardly anything.
Right? I did paint, flooring. If I had an appliance to replace, I replaced the appliance. I didn't replace it with new. I replaced it with news. Right? But I made sure I replaced lighting. And I'm very cost conscious in how I manage all of my supplies. So, and I learned that from Bigger Pockets and understanding how to do that stuff, right? And that helps me plan for the future. I mean, I got supplies sitting waiting for me to use for my next 3-4 flips.
So I don't remember what your goal was for the first year. It was maybe to own, do you remember for the first year?
I think that first year was I didn't even have doors. I just said I want to own 2 or 3 properties or something like that.
But you were way past that already.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I owned the condo, and that first year I owned the condo. I owned the 6-unit and the 5-unit, and then I got the email from you about the 9-unit apartment multi-use building, and I was like, okay, what do I know about multi-use? Then I decided I don't need to know. LeAnn knows. I'll just figure out how to work through it, and I'll call her.
Yeah, I love that. And, he did buy a 9-unit mixed use, you folks, is what, 5 apartment, 4 on the top, 1 down, and then 3 commercial spaces.
Yep.
And that thing cash flows too, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. It cash flows very well. I mean, I'm still working on filling the commercial space because there's so much stuff that has to be done with it. And I'm working with the city to come up with a better solution to help maximize their commercial space usage. But it cash flows so well that the apartments are cash flowing very well without even having to fill the other units.
Yeah, so it's not an immediate problem, but actually in the end game is to build the 3 commercial units. But even with, that's when Russ's eyes got the stars, when he realized that the multifamily alone could substantiate this project real well.
Yeah. Yep.
So he didn't have to worry too much about the commercial. That's the gravy train later.
Yeah. And that's where the key is, understanding the numbers. I know you and I have talked before, and it's about, I no longer get excited about properties. I get excited about numbers. If the numbers work, I'm excited about that property. If the numbers don't work, I don't care about the property.
Yeah. So what can you tell those on here who are just getting started?
You probably know more than you think you know for you to get up off the couch, right? I mean, you could spend the next 6 months watching every Bigger Pockets video, listening to all the gurus talk. But what's going to really make a change for you, in whether it's a change in life, a change in finance, a change in structure, is taking action. And it doesn't take big actions. It just taking action. And then following that action with another action, right? And then once you'll see that, you'll build momentum based on you just being able to actually see successes. I'm really big on success momentum. So I know that if I want to do something, I need to create a success for it. So if you decide that you want to go into that you're afraid of talking to bankers, you don't think a banker would give you a loan, then stop by your local bank. You give them your money from your paycheck or whatever, and just say, I'd like to find out more about your loan program. Once you know and understand what their requirements are, go into another bank and then ask them, and then compare the 2. And then you get to see, okay, well, maybe this bank, my bank I bank with, is not my bank that I should be trying to work with.
Yeah.
Right. And then you can make an educated decision and take action. That's taking action that now you're 1 step closer to becoming an investor, because now you know not every bank is going to be exactly the same. There are banks out there that want your money. They want you to actually, they want someone successful as an investor.
So your advice for the new investor is, get off the couch for one thing, and quit watching 10 million videos, because you know what? It's cool watching those videos, but it doesn't make you money. And to go ahead and interview the bankers, interview the mortgage people, interview the realtors, interview meet the people, get out.
Yep. And if you're going to invest, a real estate investor is not just about investing in property. It's about you investing in yourself. Right. And that was the one thing I had to really get a better understanding of, is that I'm going to be investing in myself in order for me to accomplish my goals, which is why I closed my eyes, I gave you my credit card number, and I moved forward. But it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my financial life to do that, because of you, I am financially free. I don't have to worry about what we've been able to build. When I say we, I really mean it. What we've been able to build, it's gonna pass on for legacies.
Yeah.
I just hope that my sons grow to appreciate the amount of work. And right now, one of them's working with me, and he's getting to see everything. He's meeting with the tenants. He's getting to see when we go to do repairs. He gets excited about getting up and coming to work with me. I thought when he graduated from college, he was going to go on and do some other things. And now he gets excited about coming and work with me in this business. And I actually asked him, I said, do you find this interesting? He says, Dad, I really like this. This is not what I thought it was going to be.
It's interesting because I know he graduated from college, and then he went to lay around a while. And I think Russ had to get his son off the couch. He couldn't get him to go with him at first. And I kept wondering why, but they're kids, we have to wait till they're ready.
Yeah.
And then he finally got ready. And now he's
right. Now he asked me, he says, what are we working on tomorrow? Are you going to need me to come with you tomorrow to do something? And if I say to him, I don't have a lot to do, he says, well, then I don't want to come unless I got something I got to work on.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, really?
Give me a job.
I give him a job. So now he's my muscle. If it's something, I had him breaking concrete. I felt bad for him for a little while, so I went and brought him a jackhammer. But the first 2 times he broke it with a hammer, with a mallet.
That's great. So somebody says, what's one thing you would do different if you could go back to the beginning? Great question.
Well, if that beginning is the beginning of me as an investor, or the beginning of me dreaming to be an investor. If it's in the beginning of me dreaming to be an investor, I would have taken more action towards things that would help me grow beyond mental, right? I would have taken more activity rather than just thinking that I need to make my mind into a book of investment knowledge, right? If I had to go back and to where I made the decision that I was going to jump the broom and marry LeAnn as an investment team, I think I would have probably thought about how to manage tenants differently. Right? Because I was fearful of the transition from corporate leadership to tenant management because I couldn't see the similarities. Right? So I had to go through some humps until I finally got comfortable to say, hold it, I don't have to be different. I thought I had to be different. And I didn't have to be different, because the same way that my team for all these years have come to me for a lot of different things, and I became personally connected with them. I'm the same way with my tenants now. I mean, I had a tenant tell me just yesterday, because I was having a problem with another tenant, and he said, Russ, I told him, you're probably one of the best landlords I've ever had. I don't see anything that he's seeing that's there. And I told him, I said, you just need to give Russ a chance. And to me, that was valuable to have one of my tenants be willing to speak for me.
Yeah.
Told me that I was doing the right thing.
The first building I owned, I remember when I finally moved out, I lived there, of course. I did the house hack strategy, bought a triplex. But when I left, there was a tenant, and in fact, he stayed there for 15 years. And I gave him the sort of the privilege of, he thought he owned the building. And I said, you know what, you take care of everything, Ray. And you know what, Ray stayed there 15 years and he did take care of everything. And, because he did own it in his heart, it was his building.
I kind of use that approach with my tenants, because I tell them, I own the building, but this is your home.
Yeah.
Right. And it's my job to provide. And I also tell my tenants, I say, I care about people, but I really care about kids. And I know that if I create an environment where your kids can thrive and feel safe, you'll go do what you have to do to make sure your kids have a great life. And people can sense that what I'm telling them is the truth. That's how I feel. Right. And if something is broken, you tell me immediately and I'll make sure it gets done. I may have a million things I'm working on, but I promise you it will get fixed. And I've been able to maintain that in these 2 years. And I'm finding that the tenants are gravitating in the same way that my employees did for all those years.
Very true. Now, one of the things I teach is that combining strategies is where the money comes quicker. And so Russ is telling us he did buy and hold, and then he fixed and flipped to get the money to buy more, buy and hold. So that's a combining strategies. So what I'm wondering about, what was the learning curve in, like, it's a lot more than picking one and going straight in. Now you combine several things.
Yeah.
What was the learning curve in that? Just one at a time?
I think every strategy you can convince yourself that I want to do a burst strategy, or I want to do a buy and hold, or I want to do a flip. I don't look at properties that way. I look at the numbers, and then if the numbers work, I go look at the property, and then I decide what I'm going to do with that property.
In fact,
right?
you got one right now that
Yep.
you're rehabbing that he bought, and he's really not sure even yet while he's doing the project. Will he keep it as a buy and hold?
Yep.
He can even short-term rental that second unit, or
Yep.
it's a duplex. What, you
Or I
know,
can flip it.
yeah.
But I know the numbers for all those scenarios in my head already. I already know the numbers. They all have the potential of being winning numbers for ownership of that property. But I'm at that point now where I don't make a decision on what it's going to be, a business decision on what's the best approach, because the market could change. I might all of a sudden look at this, and it could be I sat down with City Hall, like I sat down with City Hall in Faribault, and they made it very clear that, that rentals are needed. So it changes my thought of how I can have a longer term play on that property, right? And not just the fast gain. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking of it the same way I thought so many years in the corporate world, right?
Yeah.
That's how we strategize around everything.
It's really about executing your business plan, but being flexible in real estate.
Yeah.
So how did you know what to buy?
Well, a lot of it came from building relationships. The first thing is having an investor realtor that understands investments, that's going to point you in the direction of those properties that have some type of opportunity involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is really being very vocal and talking to people about what you do and and what your interests are, right? And that you are an investor. Don't be ashamed to tell people, I'm a real estate investor. Right? I don't care if you only got $100 in the bank and you want to buy your first property. You're a real estate investor if that's what you aspire to do.
Well, and Russ has it on his shirt. You can see right there, positive share. And I know you've talked about meeting people at Menards or Home Depot because it's on your shirt. I buy houses.
Yep. And I don't use bandit signs. I got t-shirts though, where this is a different kind of shirt, but my t-shirts has the positive share logo, but on the back of it, it says we buy houses, and it has my telephone number on it. I'm my own walk-in bandit sign.
Yep.
Right. And that way, and I've had so many people walk up to me, I watch them when I'm walking past them, and they look at the back of the shirt. And I know some people are kind of bashful, so they may not contact me then, but then I've gotten calls later and saying, I was wondering, do you buy houses? And I'll say, yeah. Right. And then I've even asked a couple of them, and they said, yeah, we saw your shirt when you were walking around inside Menards. Right. And I'm like, okay, fine. And it works because nobody's going to be able to explain what I want to do with other stronger than me.
Oh, yeah. So let us in on what the difference is for you with having a mentor and a coach or doing it by yourself.
Well, I can honestly say I would have never, ever, and I'm a prayerful person, but I would have never accomplished what I've done in these 2 years if I hadn't decided to sign on with you. My confidence level changed. The way I walk into properties, it's almost like I walk into properties now because I know I'm not walking in alone. No matter what it is, no matter how it's set up, no matter what it is. I know if I don't know, I'm going to call LeAnn, and then I'll know exactly how it works, right? And she'll tell me what I need to know to make the right decision. She'll connect me to the right person, right? And then I know I can move forward because I know I'm not stepping into it alone.
That's a, someone, Chris on here is asking, what's the best way to find an investment realtor? Well, you can Google investment property realtors. And just so you know, I run a team of investment property realtors, the Encore investment team, and they're all trained by me. And we are unique.
Mhm.
We can still sell a residential house, but when it comes to investment property, we know so many more strategies than just the typical buy, make an emotional buy because you like a house. Investment property isn't an emotional buy. Well, some people it is. It's a numbers buy, and there's a lot more reasoning. And so you can Google it, or you can call us, and I'll tell you how at the end. And Grant here is asking, when rehabbing units, what has to be done by a licensed contractor versus a DIY?
Okay, the easy question is you have to get your plumbing, your electrical, your HVAC, those things are given. If you're going to get that kind of work done, you make sure it's a licensed contractor. But you also have to be careful because different counties or different cities have different requirements and regulations. So it's important that when you go and you buy a property, even if you own a property somewhere else or you're about to go buy it, go down to City Hall. Let them know who you are. Build friends there with them. Talk with them about what your goals are. Find out what their goals are for the city. And then allow them to give you the education you need. Okay, so for this county, if I'm going to do work, what do I need to know? Some people will avoid their conversation because they think it will create more work for them. At the end of the day, having that conversation creates better work for you and it creates stronger relationships, right? Because you're going to buy again, and you're going to buy again, and you're going to buy again, and they will remember. There's a difference between the person that walks in and tries to dodge the inspector compared to the person that walks in and wants to understand what the inspector wants and expects and will get it done and move forward. Because that next time the inspector comes across you, he's not going to be as hard as he was the last time. Or she's not going to be as hard as she was the last time. They're going to, as they can see how you operate, they're going to ease up and they're going to understand that, yep, it's a given. I know you're going to work with HVAC, licensed individuals. I know you're going to do this.
Yeah.
I know you're going to do that.
They can
I don't
ease up.
have to, police you.
So you said you saved money on materials, and I think you guys, Russ is really clever there, saving a lot of money on rehab materials. Will you share with us a little, how do you do that?
Sure. So the first time I heard about it was I was listening to Brandon Turner, and he was talking about how, when you do a rehab, if you do multiple rehabs, you buy paint one time. Right? So you buy multiple gallons of paint and you paint all your properties the same color. But then I started thinking about it and I'm like, well, suppose I get tired of that gray and white, right? But I started thinking, I can probably do that for other ways. So what I do is I've gotten to the point now where I go into stores like Menards or Home Depot, and I go into my normal ones that go inside, or I go to Habitat for Humanity. And a lot of times these lights and stuff in there are brand new. And I have an idea or a vision of what I think any of my properties are going to look like. And I will walk through on the shelves and see stuff that's on clearance, or go into Habitat and I'll see like a really stunning light for a bathroom. And if I think about it, that light's going to cost me, if I had to buy that light for retail, it'd be $125. But that light is sitting there in Habitat for Humanity, brand new, or it came down from somebody's house that did a rehab, but it still looks brand new. And I paid $15 to $20 for it. I take that light, I put it into my garage or store. I got 2 storage units now because I've expanded it so much, right? And now when I come across whether it's a rehab for an apartment or a flip, even, I can just go right into, I say I go shopping at my Macy's.
Yeah.
And I go inside there and I just pick whatever it was I need. Okay, I need. So if I see that this time of the year, guys, it's probably just about over, but this time of the year, Menards, mostly Home Depot and Lowe's, have a clearance on their lighting. So the same lighting that you would have paid 2 months ago, that was $150, you can buy it for like $20.
Wow.
Well, or 25. Some are 30, depending on around, how flashy it is. Well, you better get there before me, because when I walk in, the guys there know I'm coming in. I walk out of there with 2 shopping carts full of lights, right? And I know I'm going to use it, but I don't have to go look for a fan. I don't have to go look for. I already know that fan that I put inside Egan. I had that fan in my storage unit for about 6 months, and that fan was the highlight of that flip.
Yeah.
Right. When everyone walked in, it was like, wow,
fancy,
that was really nice. Right. It would have typically cost about $300. I paid like $60 for it.
So it's knowing where to buy discount materials and timing too. Like you said, timing of the year is important too. Yeah. Okay. And then let's see here. Here's the other thing. This is something I teach, and I know you're working with Section 8. And that's how I built my inner city portfolio. And so what are your thoughts or something to say here to people who hesitate about doing government subsidized housing?
I watched a video once on Bigger Pocket, and there was a guy out of DC who does nothing but Section 8 housing. Right. I mean, I grew up in housing projects, so I know from my experience, not everybody who grows up in a section who lives in a housing project keeps their home horribly. Right. There's a lot of folks who you go inside some one person's house and it was all messy. When it's someone else, it was well decorated. You're in a time zone. You go outside the hallway, it's a housing project. You go inside their house, it's like you're in HGTV. So I know that even people that are on Section 8, there are people that they're not on Section 8 because they're lazy or because they don't care about where they live. It's just a circumstance that they're working through for many of them. So I don't treat my Section 8 and tenants any different than any tenant that would come through another avenue outside of Section 8. They go through the same interview process. They go through the same background check, the same credit check, and everything. I do know that sometimes some of them may not have 750 credit scores, right? But I haven't set my margin at 750. It's just like when I was managing people, my margin could be 650 or 625, but I want to understand the whole picture. How did you get here? What's your situation? If you're willing to be open with me and explain it to me, I'm willing to be flexible and understanding. Is this a fit for you and I? It's not just a fit for you, it's a fit for me. And can you keep this going long term? And I'll call for their background checks and everything. I'll call their employers. I'll treat it no differently. And I found that the people that I've put in place that are coming through Section 8 are very grateful, mainly because I've had it happen to me at least 3 times where they said, I never thought I'd live in a place that looked like this, because they tell me horror stories of places where they came from, where people treated them because they were on Section 8, told them they just had to live with mold on the wall or a carpet that was filthy. And now they're moving into places that have been newly rehabbed. The floor is LVP, it's nicely painted, and they're working hard to not mess it up.
That's cool. That is cool. And one of the reasons I like it is if you did, let's say you owned property during COVID and people weren't paying their rents. Yes, we had rent help, and no, we couldn't evict. But here's the thing. If you had government subsidized housing, your check just keep coming in the mail.
Right.
That's that mailbox money we're talking about.
Yes.
So there's a lot of pluses. And, I built a $14 million portfolio on Section 8 rentals. So I'm not afraid of them, and neither are you.
And it's important to build a relationship with your Section 8 agents.
Absolutely.
Right. Because all of the agents that I work with all know who I am. When I call them, it's like we're just talking like we're friends and so forth. And we talk about a lot of different things, our kids. But with them, if there's an issue, they're just as much an advocate for me as they are for the Section 8 participant, because they appreciate the fact, I've had them telling multiple times, they appreciate the fact to have a caring landlord that actually is going to keep the place not being like a slumlord.
Absolutely. And someone that they can work with.
Yeah, and they've referred people to me.
Yeah. So say something about partnering with others, because I know you've partnered with some others on deals.
Yeah, and most recently I partnered with others on deals because I as you start to build yourself in this business, you start to build a lot of different relationships. And people start to see that, wow, you're doing some cool things. Is there something that we can do to work together? And I started really thinking about this could be twofold, because I have my own strategies for positive share, but I also have strategies that can partner with other people to help them along with helping me, which give me a little bit more cash flow. And I had to figure out, and you and I sat down and talked through, what should that structure look like? What documentation I should have in place as far as a partnership agreement, as far as understanding what value each one of us can bring to the deal. In my most recent partnerships, my part of that deal didn't have to be the money, right? Because of what I've developed in my relationship with banks, my relationship with community, my understanding of how the business works, that's a strong value. And I couldn't see that value clearly until you and I had that conversation, where it carries just as much, sometimes even more than the money.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people out there, who have cash and don't want to do any of the work. There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's some really good partnerships that can be had. Just, I always say it's like getting married. Just get clear on your terms.
Should I give them an example of one of those partnership deals? And
we're running on time,
okay.
so no, we got to move on. And lately you acquired a mobile home park, right, Russ?
Yeah.
So, I know you worked hard for that, but again, we got some cash flow here, don't we?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was an interesting deal, because I was initially asked to help as a partner. I was contacted by a real estate realtor and says, I have somebody of mine who's buying a mobile park. And it just happened to be a mobile park you and I had looked at a year and a half earlier. And the guy wanted a lot more money than we thought it was going to be worth it, and based on all the work that was needed. And he just needed me to help him coordinate all of the rehab. And he didn't know anything about all of those things, but he was going to be buying the property paying cash. Well, he bought the property paying cash. I helped him figure out what to do with his tenants, help put in place, help him coordinate how to raise his rents and so forth. And they got the units rented out. It's a 5-unit mobile park. Did a rehab in 3 of the 5 units, coordinate getting the place all cleaned up. Well, we get to the point that it's about 4 months later, and he comes to me and he says, Russ, you know what? You're doing all the work. We really are looking at some bigger projects. How would you like to buy the mobile park from me? And I was like, what? Well, this is the same unit that you and I were going to buy for over $100,000 more. He was going to sell it to me for $100,000 less with no money down.
No money down.
No money down, contract for deed. And he allowed me to design the terms that were agreeable going forward.
Wow. Right? Here's a little picture of the mobile home park right here. So he went ahead, and now you're the owner.
And now I'm the owner of the mobile park. More than agreeable terms. Property cash flows several $1,000s a month. And I got no problem owning a cash flowing mobile park that I've already done all the rehab anyway. The key thing is they paid for all the rehabs. They spent almost $20,000 in the rehab costs.
And he got it for $100,000 less than when we looked at it.
Yep.
So sometimes you do pass on deals, and hey, they come back around when you have a positive attitude and you're a Russ and you build relationships, because a lot of this came from relationships.
Yep.
So we got 1 minute here to leave our most valuable tip you would give to the people. And then remember, folks, don't go away. Stay on, because we get to ask questions and we'll get to meet each other. So what's your most valuable tip?
I keep hearing, years ago, I was involved in multi-level marketing, and this guy would constantly use these words. Some of you might have heard of him before, and he uses words, just do it. Just do it. Just do it and do it and do it. And that echoes in my mind over and over again, right? Any one of us can easily talk ourselves out of not doing it. That's always the easiest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really want to invest in real estate and you want to make that change in your life, just do it. Just step out there and take one step at a time. It doesn't take big steps. It just takes steps.
Yep. We're back to get off the couch.
Get off the couch, right? And just start taking action, just taking the steps. You know the steps that would make you comfortable. So start taking those steps, one step at a time, until you get to the point where you think, okay, because what those steps will do is create success momentum, right? And then after a while, you'll be like, I don't need to even think about this anymore. The steps become natural.
Okay, I'm going to close it up, but that doesn't mean we're done talking to Russ, okay? And I just want to give you the information here of how to contact Russ or me, all right? So, now let's go here. Wait a minute. Okay, first off, wait, am I on share? No, here we go. There you go. Anybody can have a free strategy session with me. And how you schedule that is go to LeAnnRiley.com, go under the little coaching tab, and there's a bunch of buttons and you'll get my calendar and you can set it up. That's how it all started, didn't it, Russ?
Yep.
It's 45-minute strategy session and we're going to talk real estate. So go ahead and do that. And here's how you get a hold of Russ right here. Here's Russ with Positive Share, and you can look on his website. Tell us just real quick.
Anytime. Just reach out to, you can see my website, www.positiveshare.com. If you want to send me a message and maybe schedule a time for us to talk, you're more than welcome to do that. Or ask me any questions, you can go to, my email is info@positiveshare.com.
There you go. And so what I want to say about that, you know, the other thing that Russ does, what's over there on that website, is his story, but also he buys houses. I mean, some of you say, you know, so basically if some seller wants to contact him with a wrecked up house, he's right there. He's got the system.
Right, I'm actively buying right now. I'm actively out there still looking.
That's right. So it goes all ways. Now, let's see here. What do I want to say? I'm going to close it out now. Thank you so much for coming. And I think we've answered all the questions. There's one more. Out of all the investment types, what would you think is the best? Mobile home parks, multifamily, or other?
The one where the number works.
Ah, I love that. The ones where the number works. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I've done all the different ones, and there's no one that I would say is better than the other. Does the numbers work?